Mark chapter 9 and chapter 10, there's a principle about the radical humanity that Jesus is suggesting. And it has three references to the idea of becoming like a child. This is the principle. How do I grow down, you might say. So first we meet the child who is welcomed in verse 36, chapter 9. He puts a child in the midst and says, unless you welcome a child like this. And then in chapter 9, verse 42, we're the reference to an abused child. You know, if you lead one of these, the little ones, astray, then terrible things await you. And in chapter 10, verse 13 to 16, you know, the familiar passage, don't stop the children coming to me. So there's three references to children. But why are these stories told? Basically, it's very simple, because the disciples were getting too big for their boots. In chapter 9, verse 33, they're arguing about which one of them is the most important. Being credulous, isn't it? And then in chapter 10, verse 13, they're trying to prevent parents from bringing their kids and so interrupting the ministry of Jesus. And then in chapter 10, verse 35, James and John are requesting the seat of honour at Jesus' forthcoming victory banquet. So here's the point. You either become like a child or you stake your claim. You either lose your self-importance and become like a child, or you claim your importance and lose your place in the kingdom. That's what's on offer here. So what's the kingdom principle? Jesus sets a child in their midst. Anyone who welcomes a little child like this on my behalf welcomes me. So what does welcoming a child mean? What does it look like? Now you have to remember that children were valued and protected and precious, but technically, legally, they had no rights. They were dependents. So Jesus places the child among them because that's where dependents have to be. That's where the needy have to be. And he takes this child up in his arms, blessing him, welcoming him. He says, when you do this, you're welcoming me. That is to say, when I welcome the lost and the outsider, I'm welcoming Jesus. It's like Mother Teresa saying the face of the poor is the face of Jesus. And Jesus takes it one step further and says, if you welcome these little ones, you're welcoming God himself. So the point is that these little ones are a picture of weak people who need special protection. And by verse 42, maybe he's still holding the child, he says, if any one of you adults, causes one of these little ones who trusts in me to lose faith, well, the millstone awaits. A horrible condemnation is in store for the bully and for the abuser. In one version it says, better if he hadn't been born. Now this isn't some kind of child protection policy, it's about the attitude of so-called Jesus followers who are more concerned about their status in the pecking order than doing the business of the kingdom. And the next story is in chapter 10, verse 13. Let the children come. You know, they're crowding in. They want Jesus to just bless their children. And the disciples are being a bit uppity, standing at the edge. Just wait your turn. He's busy over here. This is important. It's very explicit. The claim is to let the society's outsiders take centre stage. Now, why would you forbid children? One reason. Because you're exalting projects over people. Because you're thinking that the business of ministry is more important than the people who constitute that ministry. It's a subtle temptation. So in concluding, Jesus in chapter 10 verse 42 says, he calls them together and he says, you know that those who are regarded as rulers of the Gentiles lord it over them, and their high officials exercise authority over them. Not so with you. Instead, whoever wants to be great among you must be your servant. And whoever wants to be first must be slave of all. For even the Son of Man he draws into himself. Even the Son of Man didn't come to be served, but to serve and to give his life as a ransom for many. Okay? That's the principle. Well, how do I do it? How do I become like a child? I've got 7 wonderful points. Number 1, I become like a child when I exalt the Lord in my life and not myself. Number 2, I become like a child when I focus on the needs of others and not on my own. I become like a child, number 3, when I stop worrying, listen here, when I stop worrying about my own ministry and calling first. Number 4, I become like a child when I recognise and counter the spirit of control working in and through me. Number 5, I stay childlike by being, you ready? Unself-conscious, dependent, irrepressible, trusting, open, teachable, impressionable. I become like a child when I learn to laugh more. Number 6, I become like a child when I stop taking myself too seriously. Number 7, I become like a child when I learn to take God very seriously. Amen. God bless you.